Hi, I'm Eric, back streaming some horror games since it's October. Joe
It's
Drilling's here hanging
October?
out with me.
It's true.
It is October. Finally, I got some real fall weather the last couple of days where it was like 40 degree. It was like 30 degrees in the morning and 60 in the afternoon, and then fell all the way back to 40, and then it rained like for 5 minutes, and then was sunny for 5 minutes, and was
That's
it?
uh, that's uh, that's not my preferred October weather. I'll be
I
honest.
love it. I Ideally it would be like 50 degrees and sunny with
Yeah.
like low
Yep.
winds. Like that's perfect weather for me. Any like 50 to
Yeah.
60 degrees, I love that weather, but I'll take this over the it was like 90 degrees all summer or all September, and that was awful and I hated it. So anyway, it's October.
It is,
Joe was
and
confused by that, but it is October. We've been doing some streaming. I skipped
we've
last
done
night, but Joe picked up my
17.
slack, so I appreciate
That's
that.
right. I was here to cover for you, brother. 17 consecutive streams this October.
It's good. Plus, we did two one day too, so like we're ahead of the game.
Yeah, we
Anyway,
did two.
tonight,
There were a couple of times we did two actually.
yeah, yeah. Anyway, tonight I'm gonna play a little of the original Silent Hill for the PlayStation One or PSX, I guess, is the official nomenclature.
That is the official nomenclature. I've never really understood
Well,
why.
I don't know really why either, but PS1 was like a product, was like a SKU, was like a mini
Right,
PlayStation.
right. The second, the mini, the
Yeah,
slim, which they've done. Every PlayStation has had
yeah,
a hardware
slim,
variant.
some, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
which I guess most hardware gets a hardware variant. Now that I think about it, but it's
yep.
sort of weird how
Everything except Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64, and GameCube, right? Pretty much
Super
everything
Nintendo
else.
had it. Super Nintendo had a hardware
Did
variant,
I
the
have it?
SNES Mini.
Oh,
Yeah, with the little circular power button and everything.
no, I don't remember that one. Was there a Nintendo
Really?
64? That wasn't popular enough to get one, I don't
There was
think.
not. Well, there was the Pikachu one, but that wasn't really
Right.
a
That's just a
hardware
different. That's a
variant.
color.
Or
Yeah.
that was, I
GameCube
mean,
had a bunch of different
well, it was
colors
more than
too.
a color. It was more than a color. It had a fucking Pikachu
All right,
graphic
fine.
onto it.
It
But
was a
it
Nintendo
wasn't.
64 with a
It was
fucking
a
Pikachu
special
skin on
edition.
top of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a special edition,
They
not
skinned
like
a
a
million
slimmer.
Pikachus and then stretched their hides and put them over Nintendo 64s. What the fuck are we talking about? Oh, was there a GameCube? There was no GameCube one, right?
There was not.
Okay.
But
There
yeah,
was a
no, there was
Wii though.
not.
There was a special. I
There
don't know if that came
was.
out here, if it was only in Canada, but there was a special weird little Wii that didn't have internet
Yeah.
functionality. Anyway, we're fucking way off in the weeds. I'm gonna play some Silent Hill. We're watching this, listening to this Kira Yamaoka fucking soundtrack for this game, which is fantastic.
I'm also. I don't. You're not gonna.
The
I don't know if you're gonna get a
mandolin.
chance to look at it right now, but I'm dropping an image in the thing of the SNES Junior because I can't believe you don't remember the smaller
I'll
SNES.
probably recognize it when I see it. Yeah, Kira Yamaoka was the did the music for this game. He did the music for most of the early entries in the series up through like Xbox 361, I want to say. It's other soundtracks are all fantastic, and
And he
Keiichiro
did.
Tomoe. I can't remember the name of the guy that was the director that sort of, but
You
I
know what else? You
hmm,
know what else Yamaoka did the music for?
hmm,
Taste my big
oh
boner.
great. Was he responsible for that particular fucking blight on humanity? The taste my big boner thing?
Well, he did the music, so I don't
Yeah, probably
know.
not. He probably didn't do the sound design.
He also did a
Um,
remix of "Time to Make History" for Persona 4, "Dancing All Night."
okay. I don't recognize that song title, but I'd probably recognize the song itself. Um, I guess I'll just
He
leave it.
cites Trent Reznor as his main inspiration for performing and in music style.
Okay.
He also cites Angelo Badalamenti, Metallica, and Depeche Mode.
Okay. I mean, there's a lot of mandolin and stuff in here, so I don't know where that seems like a, I don't know, like a Led Zeppelin thing or something. But a lot of prog rock bands, a lot of atmospheric prog rock bands use mandolin. Um,
Looks like Revelation was the.
the last one he
No,
did.
that's the movie. That's the movie.
Oh.
Apparently, he did some work for the movie soundtrack.
Okay.
Shattered Memories. It looks. What was Origins or Shattered Memories? The last one, the
I don't.
later one, I
I
should
don't
say.
know.
Whichever one of those came last is the last
Was
one
the
he
last
worked
one
on.
he worked on? I think I don't know. I can't remember if he did Shattered Memories or not. Generally speaking, his soundtracks are fantastic. The main theme from Silent Hill 2 is one of my favorite pieces of video game music. But obviously, the music that plays over the FMV intro in this game is also really, really fucking good, with the mandolin and the watery, distorted guitar. And I don't know about you, Joe. I don't know if did you play this when it came out in 1999? Probably around that time. Okay.
I did. Not a ton of it. I didn't finish it at the time, but I did play it. Actually, I don't think I've ever finished it. But I did play it, and I got to the school, which remains one of the most sort of chilling, video game experiences of my.
Yeah, that's like one of the first areas you visit, actually.
Yeah, it's pretty early in the game, but that's the thing that sticks out. Like I got past the school, but I don't remember how far past, because the school is the thing that really sticks out to me as like.
Yeah, the school, the hospital,
the creepiest part of
the two big ones in this.
I remember the hospital from Silent Hill 2 more.
Yeah, this also has a hospital. They all have a school and a hospital and a. I think 2 is like the apartment building is the first one.
Right, and
obviously the historical society and the prison are like the fucking
right. Silent Hill 2, the only thing we talked a lot about moon logic puzzles on on Sunday when we were playing Dracula Revelations, but there is a sort of moon logic puzzle in Silent Hill 2.
There's a bunch of them.
Well, there's just the only one that really hung me up to the point where I had to like actually check a guide is the one where you take the 6-pack of energy drinks or whatever and have to like put it on top of some garbage to like push something out of a garbage chute.
Yeah, there's a key that falls down a drain, I think.
Right. Yeah, and I'm like, that's super dumb.
With the 6-pack of Coke or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when the demo for this came out would have been like early 99, I want to say. I don't know exactly when this came out. If it was late 98 when the demo came out, or early 99, it was like an official PlayStation magazine. This was before it was the official US PlayStation magazine, which I think they had to rebrand it as later.
Right.
But I mean, so Resident Evil came out in 96. I got a PlayStation 97. Resident Evil 2 came out in 1998 and was probably my favorite game of that year, even though that was also the Ocarina of Time. And I didn't play Half-Life until later, but that year is stacked.
That year solid.
Yeah, I played like 100 hours
like
of
Xenogears
in 1998, which is... I really enjoyed about 60 hours of that game. There was a bunch of crazy shit, but...
That's about 40 more hours of that game than I enjoyed. So, I had it, though. I got it when it came out.
But in a stacked year,
touch angles, the scariest thing.
But yeah, so this is one of the things that I really wanted to highlight is so in the demo of this game
is the touch angle.
Well, so you come through that gate, right? And most of the survival horror, I mean, is a term that was defined by the Resident Evil series, and it came to mean a very specific type of game with fixed camera angles and pre-rendered backgrounds and weird, stupid puzzles and tank controls and zombies. And I mean, those games are very much like genre horror, B horror type things in the way that there's biological weapons and weird inside-out dogs and shit like that. And then this game came along, and reading the previews of it was like, this is going to change the way you view horror games, because it's not a B-style horror game. It is a quote-unquote a psychological horror game. It's a game that it's not just going to be creepy and then like freak you out with some jump scares. It's going to like get inside your head and fuck with the way you think about things and view the world.
And it will have Dutch angles.
And I did not believe that until I played the demo, and this is like one of my most vivid video game memories is coming through that gate and then coming up to this like Joe says, this big Dutch angle in the corner, and then you walk through this next thing and the camera becomes not just a static thing and not just a thing, not just a Lakitu and a cloud that you have to fucking argue with about where he should be positioned, but it becomes this living, breathing monster that like is following you. And it just was like the most mind-blowing thing that I'd ever seen in a video game up to that point. Just like the idea that cameras could communicate some like vital, atmospheric piece of information was it was a fucking revelation in 1999.
I mean,
know?
Resident Evil did do that. The camera didn't move, but
Right,
the
camera was
angles
not
were very
the camera was
specifically
could not
chosen.
be a character in that game. There is
No.
some really great camera angles in those games, to be sure. But
Yeah, this game really.
right, and then also this
Really
stuff with
did
the
help.
dynamic light source, right? As you're walking down this alleyway, and the camera tilts, and there's this fucking wheelchair that's just the wheel is spinning. Honestly, this might be the best part of this whole game. Is this opening sequence, which you'll see in a minute, is actually just a dream sequence. And also this sound effect, this music, you know, like the sirens and which would just be like an atmospheric bit in a Trent Reznor or, you know, other earlier industrial artist repertoire.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're basically walking through the transition from the Silent Hill as a normal place into Silent Hill, this place that is, you know, chain link fences and rotting flesh and blood and rust and
What is this? What's going on here?
what's going on here? Unfortunately, the voice acting's a little rough, even for
Yeah. That's the thing that really keeps it from being super, super effective, right? Is
Yeah.
like, because that kind of jives with Resident Evil.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's so B movie anyways that it'd be like, what is it?
Yeah.
You know, that's not a snake, it's a monster.
Right, it feels
Like,
appropriate
you
for the
know.
tone of those, which kind of flips back and forth between funny and scary. And this game is trying to be scary all the time.
And so when it breaks down and it's like, what's going on? Like
Yeah.
you're just like, God damn it! Like,
Fortunately, in the
and
second,
even 2 did that too. The voice acting in 2 isn't very good either.
the voice acting in 2 is very stilted, but I think it's very appropriate for
Was I
the weird dream logic of that game.
Yeah,
How
I
do you
suppose.
feel?
That's why I really
Like,
like
in this
2
game,
because
it sort of
Because
falls
I
on the
run
side
over
of
by a
being kind of
truck.
bad, and in 2
I'm
it's
alright,
like
I
just
guess.
good enough that it works in a
Glad to hear
weird, awkward way that is appropriate for.
I feel like James is like some of the other characters, like the fat kid whose name I can't remember now, the
Wait
one
a
with the
second,
gun.
just-
who's
Yeah, I can't
really
remember his
weird and
name.
creepy. He's good. Like his
think
delivery
we're
is
for
so
a big
weird.
kid.
that
The little
it's
girl is
effective.
really good too. And
Yeah, but
who's the lady
James
with the
is-
the turtleneck sweater? I can't
know
remember
what
any of their names, but hers is really good too.
And the weird
to
game
find
show
out
host in the
myself.
elevator
Wow, I mean,
is great, but James himself is like not very good, and that kind of hamstrings it
Have
a
you
little bit.
seen
But
a little
it's
girl?
still one of my favorite horror games. And actually, I need to replay that
Just
game.
turned 7
it's
last
it
This
is
month.
is really
it is
good.
still
Black
to this
hair.
day the best horror game that's ever
My
been
daughter.
released.
Well, because they don't explain anything.
right,
Right? Like that's the
Right.
like
That's
games
actually-
have this
I see
weird
this town.
need more than movies or books
Where
to
is everybody?
to explain
I'd
well,
tell you if
I think
knew you
that-
loved me.
big
I
budget
think that-
games, especially like, from
right, but I
major
think that
pub-
there's a huge number of big budget movies and sort of more mainstream books that also do that.
I know.
Like Stephen King books have a
Sure.
tendency to do that, and that's why one of the reasons I don't like them very much.
I mean, yes and no, but like the genius
What's
of
your
it
name?
is that he never explains what it is.
It's a
right?
giant spider,
Right, but
Harry
where
Mason.
did it come from? Why
don't
is
know.
it there? What is it doing? Like,
Sybil Bennett.
like,
right?
I mean, yeah, it's a giant spider, but like,
I'm a
what
police
is
officer
it?
from
Like,
Brams,
what is
this
it?
town.
You never find out. It's
an
just
alien.
this creepy thing that eats kids. It feeds on their fear, but then like it eats them. You know, and like
I'm going
Silent
to
Hill
Holland's
2,
reinforcement.
like, because this one has the cult angle and
Right.
stuff.
I was just gonna
Spoilers
bring
for
that
a
up.
20-year-old video game.
Not quite, only 18 years old.
But Silent Hill 2, I haven't seen all the endings, I guess, but like Silent Hill 2
My
really
daughter.
pulls back
I've
from
gotta
explaining
find her.
anything.
Right. Especially in this first
No
game,
way.
there was kind of a convoluted plot revolving around Harry's daughter being like the reincarnation of
In that
some
case,
kind
I
of
need to
god
find
that
her
lives
now.
beneath the town
Cheryl's my little
or
girl.
whatever.
Right.
But
Well, that's what the cult
I
believes,
can't
at
just
least.
leave her
right,
out
but
there
they
by
don't
herself.
really get into that stuff super deep until the third game.
Have you got a gun?
So like the second game is like a side story, and the third game you actually play as Cheryl, and you meet
Take
Harry
this.
in a you know
Hope you don't have to
in a
use it.
different in a different
Timeline
place,
or
right?
something.
Cheryl is in a mall at the
Before you pull
beginning,
the
and then when you
trigger,
get out of
know
there,
who
she's
you're
picked up
shooting.
by a detective, and she's taken to meet Harry, and then you kind of find out
Don't
more about.
do it unless you have to.
And in fact, a lot of the other games in the series sort of
Don't
suffer
blast
from
me
that
by mistake.
being tied to that
Got it?
weird occult or cult nonsense.
Yeah. Thanks.
The fourth game in particular really is hurt by it because that game
You do best to
really
stay
didn't need
nearby.
any of that, but you still
I'll be back
visit
with help
places
as
that
quick as
are
I can.
supposedly were inhabited by the cult, and that really ruined that, and the vacuum cleaner ghost really ruined the mood of 4 for me, because I was really like, there was a point where I was like, 4 is amazing, and then I got far a certain point into it and I was like, oh, actually this is just going right back to the cult nonsense, and I don't really care anymore. But
Showtime Cat says, did you ever get to check out PT before they canned it?
I never
It's
got to
on-
play PD. I didn't have a PlayStation 4.
Well, it's on my PlayStation 4, so when you're here in November, you can play it if you want. I actually still haven't played it, but I made sure to download it before it disappeared forever. So.
Okay. I've seen it played to completion in 2 different, or maybe 3 different instances, and it seems like something I really would have enjoyed, but at this point I don't know that I would get, just having seen it, you know, all the various permutations of that hallway, I don't know that I would get a whole lot out of it, but
Yeah.
it is a super effective thing. That's a real, it's like a damn shame that that project didn't come to fruition, because it could have been really incredible.
Whatever happened to, there was a...
Hey Joe,
Yeah.
remember when Konami used to make video games?
Oh my god.
I know I say
I
that
was
every
gonna
time I
mention
play a
that.
Konami game, but fuck, man.
So, have you seen the trailer for Allison Road? Which is a weird name for a game, because it's like named after a Gin Blossom song. But
Maybe?
so, these guys called Team 17, whoever they are. It was canceled. Well, that's some bullshit.
Was that a Kickstarter thing that didn't...
It was gonna be a Kickstarter thing, but I don't know if they even got to
I think
that.
I remember
point.
hearing somebody talk about that at some point.
But I remember watching a trailer of it when it was first announced, and it was very similar to PT. And it was like, just the trailer was like pretty
Cool.
fucking chilling.
Yeah.
On August 22nd of 2016, it was announced that development will resume without Team 17 involvement as a publisher and under the newly formed Far From Home, consisting of Chris Kessler and his wife.
What
Okay.
am I missing here?
So I don't know.
this
I guess
map
it's still,
and
but
stuff
there was
like
there's like a 3-minute trailer that came out that I think was going to be a Kickstarter thing or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it
I remember
looked
that, I think.
fucking creepy. But yeah, I mean the problem is that they just Showtime Cat says, "What about the arcade Silent Hill?
What's that?
Isn't it like a light gun shooter or
think
something?
so. Yeah, I've
right?
never
Like
played
that's
it,
the
but-
thing.
What's
I
going
feel like I've
on?
seen a video of that, maybe.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen it in an actual arcade.
this is
Maybe I
great
did
scene.
when.
This is so. The flashlight is brilliant in this game, and also this radio is fucking another brilliant.
Yeah, the radio's
Yes.
great. Showtime Cat says yes. I assume yes is a response to. Man, that monster would be a lot scarier if it wasn't clipping through the ceiling.
I mean, that's a function of playing this on an emulator to a certain extent, I think.
Happening to this place.
Showtime Cat says yes. Arcade Silent Hill was. I guess that means yes.
Okay.
It was a light gun shooter thing. House of the Dead Silent Hill edition or whatever.
I thought I could.
No,
there we
never
go.
played it.
Take this pocket radio. Heck yeah.
I honestly wasn't super into the series as it was happening. Like even Silent Hill 2, I played through like in like 2009, which
Oh,
was
wow.
already like 8 years after it
Yeah.
had come out, you know, or whatever. So
No, I was by the time Silent Hill 2 came out, that was pretty much the only survival horror thing I had any interest in. You know, like I enjoyed Dino Crisis 1 and 2 for what they were, but like I said, I've mentioned this before in other streams that we've done and probably in podcasts and stuff, but I had a friend that was just obsessed with this kind of game. Like he was the kind of like he unlocked all the secret stuff in Resident Evil 2, and he played through some really mediocre stuff like Galarians and some really awful stuff like
Yes.
Overblood, and I got dragged along for a lot of that stuff because, you know, like I'd go over to his house and hang out, and oops, I do want to take the handgun ammo. So like I've played or at least watched a bunch of really, really awful survival horror games, which is most of them, except for the ones in the Resident Evil and the Silent Hill series, unfortunately.
Right. I'm trying to think. There must be some that were like off-brand.
Yeah, I mean,
that are
like the
still
two new
good.
Alone in the Dark games were be like okay. There's probably some other ones that I'm not thinking of offhand, but
What about Illbleed?
Illbleed,
Did you shit
Illbleed
with
is
fear?
Illbleed is cool as hell. I don't know how scary that is, but
Scary enough to make you shit with fear.
you gotta drink a Hassie.
So, all the streets are of course named for like
Yeah.
horror icons,
Richard
horror and
Bachman.
science fiction icons, right?
Levin, Bradbury, Elroy. What's the famous horror author named Midwich?
That was the one I was actually just trying to figure out. The Midwich. What's the Midwich reference to? Isn't that a town in some
Maybe,
book or
yeah.
another? Showtime Cat says bad voice acting. By the way, but outdated. Yeah, I mean, part of it is that no games had good voice acting.
Right. This is
Really,
actually
very
in
few
1999. This game was considered to have pretty fucking good voice acting
games. Yeah.
by the
Although
standards
what's
of
weird
the
is,
era.
if you go back and play Snatcher, which is from 1994, I
Yeah.
think it actually has like really good voice acting.
Right. Well, that has real
like by
actors in it,
any
right?
standard. They were all Chicago actors, and the way they recorded all the dialogue in the room together, which
Right.
is like part of the problem is part of it is the localization team in the U.S. actually got American actors because some of these games,
Right.
like
It's just people
like Resident
that
Evil,
are in
I
the studio
believe they
or whatever.
were Americans living in Japan, or
Yeah.
maybe not even Americans, but like people who spoke English living in Japan.
Go
Yeah,
away.
sometimes
Leave me
it
alone.
seems like they just grab the janitor and we're like, do a voice in this thing, say this into a microphone. And Snatcher actually got like actors. Chicago,
How fucking good is it
actors,
that
and
the radio plays different types of static for different types of enemies?
that's so good. That's so good. But yeah, most game voice acting was the hot shit garbage in 1999. A lot of it still isn't good. Like if we're being honest,
It's true.
so
Yeah. It has achieved a standard of mediocrity that sort of applies across most games, but there are still very few games that actually have genuinely good acting in them.
yeah. Even when they get people who are otherwise good actors, like I wasn't like floored by Kiefer Sutherland in Metal Gear Solid 5 or anything, right?
I mean
Like,
he also only had like 6 lines of dialogue, and
right. Right.
take the handgun bullets. So what do we got here? To school.
Isn't this Cheryl's sketchbook?
I don't
To
know. You
school
should
for
probably know.
fool?
You're her father. To the school. I don't really remember the route. Do you have to find? I think you have to find a house, and then there's like you have to find a
You have
key
to
in a
like
doghouse.
there's a key in a doghouse, yeah.
Is that this one, or is that the second one, or is that both of them?
Probably both. I don't know.
Found a pipe. Not that I'm ever going to use
Put
it.
that in your pipe and smoke it.
Haha.
Uh,
Also, this game, this is not something you would have thought of at the time, but this is like the first of the dad games, which is like a huge thing nowadays. It would definitely credit that more toward, I guess, The Last of Us, but there's been like a shitload of games that are about like the relationship between fathers and sons or fathers and daughters
yeah, I guess that's
recently. But this is like this game is the first to really exploit the horror of a parent like misplacing their child.
But you can't press X to Jason, so Midwich Street is a reference to Village of the Damned.
It's the Dead Troidvania.
Wow.
Thanks for popping in with that one, Coffee. Let's see. Leave me alone.
So I was reminded last night watching this thing from the 90s about the history of horror films hosted by Christopher Lee
Hmm.
that Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein when she was 17 years old, and now I feel like my entire life is a failure.
There's a great like meme that gets posted sometimes on Twitter and stuff about other various famous and talented people who didn't do things until their 30s and 40s, so don't feel too bad about it.
No, that's good. I mean, I guess also
I want to say even like Terry
else that Mary
Pratchett
Shelley
didn't
wrote.
start putting stuff out until his like mid 30s, so
Oh, I've still got a couple of years to do
Yeah.
something worthwhile then.
well, maybe I can just run here. Maybe it is the second one where you have to find the key. I don't know. We'll find out. Oh no, yeah, here's the first. This was also a thing that terrified me and blew my mind the first time I came across it. Just like the super mundane thing of this infrastructure of roads, and now it's just broken and gone.
Yeah.
But so I'd really wanted to, and maybe I will at some point. I'd really wanted to play Silent Hill Shattered Memories because that game
Were you able to get it working? Well?
I not so much. I haven't really messed with it since.
Did you dig out your Wii?
I have not dug out my Wii. I think I could play it on my Wii U, can I?
Yeah, that's right. You do have a Wii U. Yeah, as long
I
as
do.
you can find a Wiimote and your if you have a sensor bar
Oh, I
hooked
might
up
have
to your
kill
Wii
this
U.
dog. What am I doing health-wise? Nope, leave me alone, dog. Alright, I can't go that way. Maybe I can go up and around? I don't really remember. I think I do have to find that house with the doghouse and the key.
Yeah, but they said there was a doghouse on 11th Street when you picked up that note, so
Am I on 11th Street? Okay, I am.
you are.
Should be over here someplace. Oh, oh, ouch. Oh, there it is right here. Nope, pick it up. Get it. There we go. House key was hidden in the doghouse. Take it? Nah.
No, just leave it there.
Seems impolite to just go into somebody's house.
Hmm.
Also, I think there's a bunch of items and stuff on the streets, but I just want to get into the school. It's locked. But that game is in some ways a retelling of this game, but it also reframes a lot of the story in this in some really interesting ways. Which most of that stuff doesn't really come out until the end of the game.
There's bullets on the kitchen table. I don't know if you.
Yeah, I grabbed them.
Okay. Sorry, I'm on this stream delay.
Yeah, no. I switched to Beam.
Yeah, this was in the era when, Konami and Capcom were still really sort of top of the heap when it came to third-party developers and sort of in competition, like, very heavily with each other. Like, it sort of felt like, Konami was like, oh, like, Capcom thinks they got the market cornered on horror, like, we're gonna turn this shit upside down.
All right, so
Which,
I have to go
they did.
out. I have to go turn left up to Finney Street and then down that alleyway to Elroy Street, right? I might not make it to the school, honestly. Is this the game with the there was a hole here, now it's gone? Or I think that's the second one.
I think that's the second one.
That health drink.
They got a decent crowd tonight. 7 whole viewers. It's a
Whoa.
big crowd for us, especially for a random weeknight. For a non-extra life stream, 7 is a lot for us.
So what have you been doing for Halloween stuff? Anything? You been watching any movies? What you
Playing
streamed?
scary video games with you.
Okay. You streamed some Ghostbusters or something last night?
I streamed. I did a quick. I played until I lost all my continues in New Ghostbusters 2 last
Okay.
night.
Was that one of the good ones? Was that the decent one? Good might be a overreach, but
Yeah, that's the kind of the expectation that I set for it. Mantarok06 put an emoji that I can't really. I think it's just a person holding their hands up.
okay.
And Mewtwo16 says hi. Hi. Yeah, that was sort of my disclaimer about, like, I feel like there's a lot of hyperbole around games like New Ghostbusters 2 and Super Back to the Future 2, where it's like the games that we did get, by and large, are so bad that anything that's like playable, people are like, this is amazing. And it's like New Ghostbusters 2 is it's fun.
That's
It's
not the
not
NES
amazing.
one, right?
It is the NES
Oh,
one.
that is the NES one. Okay.
Like, it's fun, it's fine, it's enjoyable, but it is not like shifting the paradigm at all. It's like you can see everything the game has to offer in 5 minutes because the maps are different and some of the ghosts are different, but like the basic play mechanics are they never change because there's no power-ups and no new weapons and no. So you have one Ghostbuster that you move, and he shoots his proton pack, and then you have another Ghostbuster that follows, and you press A to have him throw out the trap, and
Yeah.
that's it. That's the entire gameplay mechanic.
Is it scary?
Mantarok06 says, "How is Spooktober treating you?" I mean, pretty good. We've done 17 consecutive streams of horror-ish video games, so yeah, I think we're doing all right. I went to see Halloween last Saturday at the E Street Cinema here in Washington, D.C.
Is that movie still good?
Yeah, it's still really good. And the girl who was sitting next to Kurt
Yes.
had never seen it before
What?
and was freaking out.
That's really good.
Like, she was probably 18 or 19 years old, and she was freaking out.
Really?
Like, yes.
All right. I mean, that movie was really scary the first time I saw it too.
Yeah. But it got to
I
the
mean,
end.
a lot of
like,
that is
there's
the atmosphere, especially John Carpenter's soundtrack for that movie is just so fucking brilliant.
Yes, absolutely. But like, so the last 15 minutes of that movie are just this like endurance of tension.
Yeah.
Like, once she goes across the street to the house and finds out what's happening, like after that, it's just like, I mean, it doesn't let up until the credits roll, basically. Or it does let up just enough for you to be like, oh, is he dead? Or did she get away? Oh no, she definitely didn't. Or no, he's definitely not.
Leave me alone, jerk.
Like when he sits up, at the very end, and she's like, she sort of slumps down.
Does that sign just say ghoul?
Yes. Yes, it does.
I never noticed that before. That's really good.
Like she just slumps down in the doorway and tells the kids to go get the police, and then behind her in the frame you can see Michael sit up.
I mean, there's
Which
a
I'm
dude
convinced-
who made a 25 wrestling
Yes, I was gonna
career
say,
basically out of doing that and having a really great intro. So
I'm convinced that the Undertaker's sit up is taken from Michael Myers in that scene in Halloween. But yeah, she was like losing it, man. She was
That's great.
in just fairly rough shape, which was fun, I guess. To see and to know that it's still that effective, that someone who is
I'm gonna have to kill this guy. Come here. Where is he?
probably 15 or 16 years younger than me, and I was already that movie came out before I was born.
Right, 79, 78, right?
78, yeah. But I mean, also my sister was petrified of that movie in high school. So, you know, I guess it remains as effective as ever.
That other key should be here someplace, I think.
Yeah, because I remember having to deal with that thing you just killed.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been killing anything, but
Find that key.
it's really weird. One of the other things about this game in particular, like, it's barely a survival horror game because there's never really any question that you're going to survive, right? It's not like Resident Evil where there's it's not like Resident Evil where there's a questionable amount of bullets and health items and things to keep you going. Like, as long as you're willing to go forward, generally speaking, you'll be fine in this game.
Right.
But because it's so affecting in terms of its atmosphere and, you know, the music and all that stuff, like, the question becomes, do I want to keep playing it, or do I need to take a break because of the amount of stress that it's inflicting on me?
Right.
Whereas,
Music is such an important part, I think, of not just music, but like sound design.
yeah,
I feel like can really elevate a mediocre horror game, or can like sink.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like,
for sure.
you know,
The other key should
and
be up here.
Resident Evil, I think, really nailed that, you know, right out of the gate.
Mhm.
As did Silent Hill.
Yeah, but I mean, in Resident Evil, like, especially going back to the original one, like we did last week, that game is almost fucking impossible, especially without the auto aim. But even later, it's just like there's a lot of inventory management, and there's a lot of
Right.
you
Yeah,
know,
there's
trying
no
to
inventory
conserve
in this game at all.
ammo and there's just none of that in this game. You have a ton of ammo and a ton of healing stuff, and like I said, whether or not you can survive really is never in question, but you still feel threatened at all times just
Right.
because of
Resident
how
Evil-
grating the atmosphere and everything is.
Yeah, and speaking of Resident Evil, I actually did do some additional research on that since we played it, and it isn't just the auto aim. There's a bunch of other stuff. Like the ammo is more sparse. Like the American version of that game is considerably harder
Okay.
than the original Japanese
I was
version,
wondering
which
about
is
that
the
when we were
director's
playing
cut
it.
fixes.
It also seemed like I was dying really fast. Is that it? Do you take
Yeah,
more
I think the
damage too?
enemies do more damage. You can't auto aim, and like health and ammo is like more scarce. And I really don't know. Like, I have a long box copy of that game, but I would be surprised if I ever decide to play it again.
No.
unless I feel like I have something to prove.
Play the
or
director's
whatever.
cut so you can see the.
Director's cut.
Isn't that the one? Then they cut out like a picture of a decapitated head in the FMV too that they re-added in the director's cut.
They actually didn't change they said they were gonna add the FMVs, the
didn't.
correct ones, but they didn't
Okay.
because there was like an error when they pressed the final disc, like they didn't switch them over in time or something. Apparently, the only American version with the proper uncensored FMVs is the DOS version.
I gotta be honest with you.
What's that?
Even though I'm sitting here and I've played this game probably 2 times before, and I'm talking to a friend on Discord, like the radio sound is still kind of like grating on me in a way that's making me uncomfortable. Like, I just want to get off the streets.
Yeah.
I'm almost
Yeah, so what are you doing for October besides playing a bunch of spooky video games?
Not
Have you gone
much.
are there
I'm
any-
trying to
is
get
the
through. I'm
Dryden showing
honest.
anything?
Nah, they really aren't. They changed directors a couple years ago, and they don't show as many like cheesy
Repertory
or B
screenings.
horror stuff. Like, they still do a different movie just about every day of the week, but it's more obscure, like 30s, 40s stuff that I've never heard of before.
There's
and I'm
a
sure
lot of
some
great
of it's
30s and 40s monster movies, though.
Yeah, but it's not stuff like that. It's like I said, it's
Yeah.
like stuff that I've never heard of before. Which I'm sure some of it's very interesting and would probably, definitely be worth my time. Also, do you notice I don't have to push a button to go upstairs? How fucking crazy is that?
I didn't realize the Dryden Theater was located at the George Eastman Museum.
It is. Well, it's all part of the. I mean, that was his. Yeah, it was George Eastman's house, like from Eastman Kodak fame.
Right,
If
yeah.
anybody's listening to this. But I mean, as it turns out, he had a vested interest in film preservation and had a gigantic library of old movies. And so there's the Eastman Museum where they had, and then there's like old cameras and stuff, and then they do like photography exhibits every once in a while. And then attached to the museum, part of his house was a screening room that they turned into a full-size auditorium theater. And then they have, like I said, they have a huge film archive, like underneath the place.
Well, they're showing The Cat and the Canary, the silent version of The Cat and the Canary, on Tuesday Tuesday, October 24th at 7:30 p.m. Which actually, I was just looking at a thing today about how the sound version, the original sound version of The Cat and the Canary, is a lost film, and it was Universal's first sound horror movie, even before Dracula, but it is since been lost.
I'm just kind of soaking in this music and this.
And on Halloween, they are showing the Lon Chaney version of Phantom of the Opera at 7:30.
Yes, I did see that. I think I've seen
And
that
on
before.
November 1st, they are showing Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah, I might go see that. I haven't been there in years at this point. I don't really go see movies too much. I forgot that I could do this backstep thing. It's pretty good.
Leaping backstep, yeah.
Yeah.
DC is really, really fantastic for repertory screenings.
Yeah, I found out after the fact that in a small theater in a small town, small-ish town called Warsaw, that they had a OG Friday the 13th screening.
Nice. But you
but
didn't go because after the fact.
I didn't find out about it till later, and I probably wouldn't have either because that was when we did our D playthrough. So I got my requisite. Oh no, we played Friday the 13th on Friday the 13th. We did D on Thursday. I guess I could have gone.
That's right.
Whatever.
Yeah, we did. Kurt and I did Halloween last weekend, and then
Also, Friday the 13th, not like that movie's okay, but
the first one.
it's not like it's not a classic in the way that like Halloween is a classic.
No, absolutely not. And the
Or
first one
it is a classic, but
it's
it's not a great movie in the way that Halloween is a great movie.
But it's not even the best Friday the 13th movie. Like,
Yeah.
Akechi Zero says, "This is the part where I realized what I was getting into regarding Silent Hill horror."
Yeah.
I think it was for me. I don't think it was until I got to the school that was where I really, and again, that still sticks out to me.
Yeah. The little
that was where I was
babies
like,
with
what
the
the hell?
knives and
Right. Dancing Jack Red Madness says, "Hello, this is one of the best horror games I ever played." I think that's probably true for just about everybody who's played it. Yeah, really effective, and
I don't know if I can get
the
here.
movie actually is not like especially good, but in terms of video game adaptations to film, it's
Yeah, I had a
probably one of
really
the better ones.
I had a really awful experience. Playing this in an emulator is kind of doing it no favors because I can very clearly, like, the fog isn't thick enough, and I can very
and
clearly
the
see where
lighting.
the lighting is, like,
Yeah,
where it's not drawing in the world until I get close enough, and then the way the
Right.
lighting is, it sort of pops in.
right.
Yeah, the movie it's an okay movie. I think the first half of the Silent Hill movie is really good, and then it falls into some of the same pitfalls that the series does, like in
Regarding the
regards
cult
to
and
the
shit.
cult and over-explaining everything that's happening. I also feel like Pyramid Head is a great visual representation of guilt in the second one, but
He should not have.
he
left
only
the second
really
game.
works in the specific context of that game, especially when you come across the photos in the basement of the historical society, and you kind of start to put it all together, what's actually happening. And I definitely fall into the camp that feels like Silent Hill is better as like a It's just
personal
like
hell for whoever wanders.
yeah, like a
into it.
personification of like the vile shit that's in our own brains, and I think that that's way scarier than some kind of weird ancient god. Although, if you want to
Right.
say that the weird
I agree.
ancient god thing is like what draws those out and gives them physical manifestation, like that's fine. But if you explain all that more than just that one sentence sum up that I just did, it sort of loses its mystique to a certain extent.
Yeah. Mantarako6 says, "What's your opinion on Eternal Darkness?" I, to my great
God
shame,
damn it,
have
Joe.
never played Eternal Darkness, but Eric shames me about it every time I bring it up, so I guess he likes it a lot.
Eternal Darkness is one of the few games that I have. If there was a platinum trophy available for GameCube games, I would have gotten the platinum trophy for that, or 1,000 achievement points or whatever. I did everything there was to do that game. I played through it 4 times and found all the spells and all the glyphs, and I fucking love that game. I streamed some of that last year, and that game holds up. The combat's a little clunky and it's a little cheesy, but it was always a little cheesy. That's kind of part of the appeal of it. It's
Mantarok says, "I shall not join him in shaming you." Shame. Akechi Zero says,
In
"I
fact,
don't
I
play
think
many
that
horror
person's.
games."
I can't see their username, but I think that's a fucking Eternal Darkness reference. So
I assumed it was a Game of Thrones reference, but whatever. Akechi Zero says, "I don't play many horror games, but when I do, I play Dos Equis. I mean Silent Hill." And then Dancing Jack Red Madness says, "Which do you prefer, Silent Hill or Resident Evil?" I think as a series, I absolutely prefer Resident Evil because I think it has more good entries that I've played.
yeah,
But I think that Silent Hill 2, maybe not, like Silent Hill 2 doesn't lend itself to replaying as much as something like Resident Evil 2 or Resident Evil 4 or
Right.
even Resident Evil 7, but
Silent
like it's a
Hill 2
more effective game.
Silent Hill 2 is the scariest piece of media I've ever experienced in my entire life. The only thing that comes close is the first song on Neurosis's Through Silver and Blood, which is the title track. There's like this thrumming drum thing that happens that just initiates the flight or fight response in my brain and makes me just want to like get in my car and drive as fast as I can and get away from. But I'm usually listening to it in my car, so it's kind of a weird.
That sounds hard. That's tough.
That particular song is just like horrifying. But Silent Hill 2 is the most scared I've ever been while I was consuming a piece of media, for
I
sure.
don't think I would go that far. It was definitely unnerving and it did scare me, but I think there are things that actually I just posted this month's Patreon Q&A video today for public consumption, and somebody asked about movies, and like the Blair Witch Project stuck with me in a way that I was not fully comfortable with.
You're not the
like,
only
after
one
I
that
saw it.
says that. I think Kurt feels that way, and Patrick Klepek, who used to stream horror games for Giant Bomb and no, works for Waypoint and stuff. He used to talk with great reverence of that movie, and I fucking hate that movie. It's so boring and awful, and it's just, it does nothing for me.
And I found that movie chilling the first time I saw it. Like, absolutely chilling. The Strangers is a movie that stuck with me. I didn't mention that in the Patreon Q&A. And
That's the one where the
not
people, that's like a
movie-
home invasion thing, right?
Right. But like they never, again, it goes back to that whole like she's like, why are you doing this to us? And they're like, because you were home. And it's just like, God, like we were talking about that earlier when it comes to this, and like great horror things don't explain like all the really great,
the scariest stuff
horror
is the
things-
stuff in your head, and great horror experiences give you just enough rope to hang yourself with.
Right. And so I was going to say not the movie 1408, but the short story by Stephen King, 1408, that's fucking chilling too. That is a fucking distressing piece of fiction, and it's short. Which I know your problem with Stephen King is that he goes on
I think
and on
I've
and on
probably
and on.
read that. I've read a few of his short story collections. And I liked most of them. I really liked the Creepshow comic book that he wrote.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you remember that or not.
Yep.
But that was quite good. There's a bunch of really good stories in that as well. It's just
but
his
so I
novels
was-
that I don't particularly care for.
Yeah. So Silent Hill 2 is not the scariest thing that I have ever delved into, but it is definitely the scariest video game I've ever played.
Yeah.
I will say that.
For me, it definitely, I put that game down for like months. The first time I played it, when I had to go through that, like I was playing it in the wintertime when it was dark, and I didn't finish it until the summer in the light. When I had to go continually go down the hole in the
In the
basement of the historical society. And then actually, once I got to the bottom and it was that prison, it was like less scary. But
yeah, but some of those noises you hear while you're down there.
yeah, for whatever reason, going down that hole and like having to choose, like I just like for whatever reason, it just completely upset me. I hate these
I
games.
played that game in October, and I went out of my way that every time I had a session, like I waited till after dark, turned off all the lights, like, sat in total darkness and played that game, and it was
Little children
it was-
zombies that have a horrifying laugh when they stab you.
Yeah.
Like-
And Resident Evil Resident Evil has jump scares, but like I don't think any of the Resident Evil games I played ever like stuck with me after I finished playing them.
There's points. There were points in one that definitely got to me, especially early in that game.
When you don't
Before
really
it
know
becomes
what's
like
going
the
on.
Monster Fest, yeah,
Right.
that was pretty unsettling the first time I played it. And there's some points in 2 that kind of stuck with me, but nothing like anything in Silent Hill or Silent Hill 2. There's some really great stuff in Silent Hill 3 too. Like I don't like that game as much as the first 2, but the spooky, as cliche as it is, the spooky theme park in 3 is really fucking good.
I think Resident Evil 7 actually is probably more effective as a piece of horror than any of the other games in the Resident Evil series.
The first 2/3 of Resident Evil 7 are really fucking good. The parts of Resident Evil 7 that are just Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 are all really great.
Right. But yeah, yeah, so I would say on the whole, Resident Evil as a series, Silent Hill in specific entries is the long-winded.
Yeah.
That was the long-winded answer to your question.
Have
Jack
you
Red.
have you ever played any of the Penumbra or Amnesia games?
I have, I think, Amnesia, the first one, but I have not actually played it.
Okay. Amnesia fucked me up pretty good, although in the end I don't think that that's necessarily a great game exactly.
Akechi Zero says, only Resident Evil 1 made me very tense or anxious, not having played RE7. I was a kid in middle school playing RE1 in the dark, so that probably contributed to the terror. Yeah, I mean, same.
Yeah, when you're in the
I got
mansion
that game when
RE1,
I
that game is
was-
really scary.
Yeah, I was in 8th grade when I got that game, and I mean, it was, but I don't remember. I remember the dog, like, when the dog jumped through the window, I nearly jumped out of my skin. And I think I've already talked about that on one of these streams.
When we play Resident Evil 1.
When we were playing Resident Evil, yeah. But man, that scared the bejesus out of me. But it was a jump scare, and I don't really remember much of the original Resident Evil really doing much more. Like the music in the police station is really atmospheric and great, and like the creepy shit you find out about Chief Irons and stuff is really more
Yeah.
unsettling than like the zombies and the giant spiders and all that stuff. It's like and Birkin sort of
that's for sure.
continually stalking you. But then you fight a giant alligator, and it's just like this,
It's pretty silly.
which
and
is
fun.
great. But
Right.
it's like
it's actually like part of the appeal of those games is those shifts in tone, right? Like
Right.
it does an effective job of being creepy. Like there's the big action set pieces that are set up in the FMV, and then you do that big action sequence where you run through the streets of the town, and then it slows down when you get into the police station, and that's pretty creepy. And you meet up with the cop that's dying and changing into a zombie. And then you're sort of left to your own devices to sort of figure out what's happening in there. And then you mentioned like the stuff with the chief, and then it swings hard back the other way when you
get
when you fight the
sewers,
alligator, or
Right.
yeah, and then like
or
the
the
stuff
giant
with
plant monsters.
right. But then there's the stuff with William Birkin, which is just straight up. That's just straight up scary. Like, not. It's just like. It's just jump scares, but they're very effective, good jump scares.
Akechi Zero says Silent Hill is survival horror, Resident Evil is survival gore. Yeah, I mean, but there's, as Eric was saying, there's not as much of a survival element to Silent Hill. Like, there's no item management, there's no worrying about, I can't carry this much ammo, did I bring the right gun or the right weapon?
Right.
So there's not quite as much of a survival element there, but there is like a terror in Silent Hill that
They're
does
horror
not
games.
exist in Resident Evil.
Right. I mean, that's why like Shattered Memories is a pretty effective game.
That's another one that I haven't played.
But that, I mean, so by the end of that game, the parts where you have to run from the first time you do the action sequences in Shattered Memories. So there's no combat in Shattered Memories. All you can do is run away from the monsters and the action
Which is
sequences.
similar to Amnesia, right?
I mean, kind of, but they're more like you have to figure out and you have to like be good at mapping out an area in your head and then figure out how to run through that area effectively. And so the first few are pretty easy, and then as you get towards the end of the game, they become a little bit more difficult and require you to sort of maybe not memorize the correct route through the environment that you're trying to get through, but at least you have to have a plan going in. And in most cases, you'll play through an area, and then you'll have to run back. Like you'll explore an area, and that's the creepy Silent Hill part. And then the monsters will show up, and you'll have to run back through that area to get away from them. And then there's like some like action sequences or some like timed button press stuff, and that stuff is pretty good at first, but it gets really old pretty quickly. There was definitely a point where I wish I could have just turned those
off.
Yeah, could have turned those right off. This is another great part in this game. You come into this bathroom, there's just like crying that you can't interact with.
Yeah. Akechi also says true. He says true. A pipe and I'm saying he. I apologize.
They.
I don't know. Yeah, they. True. A pipe in your trusty foot is mostly enough in Silent Hill.
Yeah. Well, plus, I mean, I have a shitload of. I've killed most of the enemies that I've come across in the school, and I still have a shitload of ammo.
Right. And I mean, eventually, once you're used to playing Resident Evil games, it gets that way too, right? Like you get to a point where if you stick with the pistol, like past the midway point of any Resident Evil game, by the end you'll have so many bullets that it's just like you get to the final boss and you're like, I have so much ammo though. I have all these Magnum bullets.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but like once you've played those games a little bit, or even just once you familiarize yourself with the enemy locations and the controls, it's pretty easy to just run past most of the enemies.
Yeah, true.
In most of the areas.
Sometimes it's easier to like if it's a room
right. It depends. Like if it's a hallway, you have to traverse
I know I'm going to run
times,
through this room.
Yeah.
Then I'll just kill the
Oh
enemy.
man, this is another great thing in this game. Just a cat. I'm probably not going to get there because I'm going to shut this down pretty soon. It's been almost an hour. But this is a great... So when you're in the flipped school and you come back to this area, like this locker is busted open. It's just like a huge like blood stain inside, which is just a great... It's a great perversion of a totally normal thing, which is one of the things that this game and this series in general does very, very well.
Yeah.
Putting you in a mundane situation and then perverting it for evil. Anyway, yeah, I think I have quite a bit left to go, I think. There's at least one big puzzle I have to do before I can get into the evil side.
You have to do the piano bit.
Yeah. Also, one other thing that I really would like to give the Silent Hill series some praise for is that starting with the second one, they had really customizable difficulty options where you could individually set the puzzle and the combat difficulty. So you could like set the puzzles to hard if you're somebody that really likes like fractured adventure game logic. And then you could simultaneously put the combat to easy, which would make it even easier than it is on normal. Or you could put them both on normal. You could reverse it if you like the combat, which I can't. It's hard to imagine anybody liking the combat in these games, but if that's a thing that you're into, like you can make that happen.
All the true hardcore gamers just told me that like making games have easier options is bullshit, and you should just get good. And the old games didn't let you make things easier.
Yeah.
Or something. I don't know.
Anyway, but I'm just saying, I really like that sort of granular customization options for difficulty was another thing that Resident Evil 2 did that was really, really kind of unheard of back in the day.
The Resident Evil 2 did?
That Silent Hill 2 sort of.
Oh, okay, I got confused for a second.
Like it's it's a really cool thing, and it's also an accessibility thing that I wish that more modern games would take into account.
Silent Hill 2 also let you turn off the tank controls.
Yeah, that's true. Although I'm finding that because of the way the camera works in this game, the tank controls don't really get in the way too much.
I gotta be honest. I get why people don't like them, but they have never bothered me personally all that much.
Yeah.
Like, I turn them off. Like, given the option,
I play a lot of combat. I know what's up.
Yeah, right. You know, if I'm playing Resident Evil 2, I usually play the N64 version because it's different than any other version, and it includes an option to turn off the tank controls, and so I do. But like when I have to play with tank controls, I'm not like, oh my god, this is so crippled and broken and terrible, or you know, whatever. Like, it's fine. It's just
one of the things about this game before I turn it off, I really like the map annotations in this series is really fucking good.
Kenji says if you grew up playing Resident Evil and Silent Hill, Silent Hill on PlayStation, you're probably used to tank controls, right? And I did.
Mm-hmm.
I've said this before, but the first PlayStation game I ever owned was the original Resident Evil, so I'm like absolutely used to them. But I still I don't think it's that much of a stretch to get used to them, I guess, is what I'm saying. Like, if you start playing a game and it has tank controls, even if you didn't grow up playing those games,
right? I
feel like getting used to them is not that it's not like a foreign concept of how to control a video game. Like, tank controls I think would be easier than going back to like the GoldenEye first person shooter control layout. You know,
plant your feet so you can aim.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, kind of. I don't know. I think that, in particular, in the Resident Evil series where the camera angles are static, it kind of makes sense. But,
yeah,
you know, I get it. Like, it is kind of difficult to wrap your mind around, and it's not. If I could choose, then I'm always going to pick just directional controls. Oh, I found the ghost.
Right. Same.
Hello. That's good. I'm glad I'm happy I found this little ghost. That's a weird little Easter egg that I don't think it always shows up in the same places. Also, the music is starting to come in. So anyway, I'm going to call this a stream here. I played an hour. This game, honestly, it holds up pretty fucking well for a PlayStation game.
Mantarok says GoldenEye shooting layout. Jesus Christ, how horrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one analog stick. Things were a lot different in 1996.
The stick moved you back and forth and looked
there were different options.
But I'm thinking the default. The
I don't remember.
analog stick moved you forward and backwards and did look for left and right, and then the C button strafed left and right and looked up and down.
Right. I was always more. I think the Turok default options were movement was on the C buttons and then aiming was on the stick, and that always felt better. But I don't know if that was in the original GoldenEye or not. That might have been just something that
I think that was. I think there was an option.
There were alternate options, but I don't remember. Anyway, it's been a long time.
I need to revisit Alien Trilogy because apparently that had the option to do like modern first-person shooter controls.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because there was some famous pull quote, like some magazine reviewer was like, "I can't believe these controls are ridiculous. Who could ever play like this?"
Yeah, well, like Red
And
Faction.
now it's the standard for
Red Faction for the
first
PlayStation
shooters.
2 had controls like that kind of too. Not exactly that, but similar. Hello. Anyway, that's Silent Hill. Like I said, this game actually holds up better than I had hoped that it would. I don't know that I'm gonna play through the whole thing again because, like I said, like the first couple areas, the school and the hospital are the best, and once you get into the occult stuff, the story kind of goes off the rails. But, or at least it becomes something that I'm less interested in. But you can
Maybe
still
it
play
was
this game
Alien
today.
Resurrection or something.
Zombie Children,
Everybody loves zombie children.
pretty scary. Anyway, I'll be back. We'll be back tomorrow, or tomorrow's Wednesday, so
Tomorrow's
We'll play a
Wednesday, so
Genesis
be doing
game and-
Genesis, yeah,
something else. I don't know what else.
something else. Well, there's a new Team Fortress patch dropped with 6 new maps.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's like,
Well, there's like a 4-day event. It's like 2010 all over again. We haven't seen like a Team Fortress 2 thing like that since MVM came out.
right? So
It's been a
I don't know
while,
what we're
so
gonna-
maybe they'll do something. Remember they used to do like a special Halloween thing every.
they still do that, but I think the last 2 years it was just they just brought back all the
Right.
previous ones. Like they
Yeah.
didn't do anything new. It was just like the old stuff is playable again.
I don't think I have
But-
anything that I can put on this just yet. Although it seems like I could just use that knife. Oh no, I guess it's a statue. I have to find some acid to dissolve the hand and get the token. But anyway, that's Silent Hill. Still good. Pretty
Still
scary
good.
back in the day.
And it's only like $6 on PlayStation Network if you have a PS3 or a PSP or a Vita or whatever.
Yeah. For sure.
So there you go.
Anyway, good night.
Good night.
Boo.